Also, finally, formerly taught at Egerton University at the University of Nairobi. That's it for Fred Okengo. Moving on to the second one, Henry Rotich. He's been nominated for the National Treasury. Taking a look at his qualifications, Head of Macroeconomics at the Ministry of Finance. Involved in formulating the budget statements, another qualification involved in preparation of key budget documents, and also down here has a master's in public administration from Harvard University. Moving on to the next, he also holds a Bachelor of Masters in Economics from the University of Nairobi. Taking a look at the third nominee in the Health Ministry, he is James Macharia. Qualifications: topped both O levels and A levels in Kagumo High School, attained a BCom from the University of Nairobi, trained as a chartered accountant in London. Also, he joined Standard Chartered Bank in 1989 to become financial controller in 1994. Also there up there is another of his qualification. Moving on to the next board. James Macharia also worked in Zambia as Managing Director at the African Banking Corporation, has been a Group Managing Director with NIC Bank from 2000 to date. Moving on to the first lady to be announced as the cabinet nominee, Amina Mohammed. Qualifications: lawyer and diplomat by profession, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, and also she was the Deputy Executive Director of UNDP. Another one here is former Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Justice, former Ambassador of Kenya to the UN at Geneva. She also served in the Ministries of Local Government, Foreign Affairs and Justice, and she is married with 2 children. Those are indeed the first 4 cabinet nominees that were presented today by President Uhuru Kenyatta. 14 more to go, and he was categorical to say that Kenyans will have to be a bit patient in determining and finding out who the rest of the cabinet nominees are. Njoka, over to you.
Well, those are the 14 remaining. And let's just listen in to what President Uhuru Kenyatta said during the announcement.
For their approval. We have been consulting and we are continuing to consult with Kenyans and meeting various individuals from all parts of our nation. And indeed, we do believe that as we conclude this particular process, we will put in place a government that can deliver not only on the Jubilee Manifesto, but also ensure that we truly are able to transform our nation and our society and take Kenya to the next level of development. This has been an exercise that we have been undertaking for the last week, and like I said, we will continue to undertake, and I do believe we have met and will continue to meet a lot of brilliant Kenyan minds, all who are willing and able to serve this nation and who will truly enable us to give a face of Kenya, the diversity of our nation, and also ensure that we meet our constitutional responsibility that is also in line with our own manifesto of ensuring that the gender aspects are also taken care of.
Well, let's take a look at our big question tonight that is led by the President's statement. Are you satisfied actually with the choice of the 4 cabinet nominees? Are you satisfied with the choice of the 4 cabinet nominees? Do send in your yes or no response with a brief comment to the number 8040, and we'll sample your views during this newscast and give you the poll results at the tail end of this bulletin. Still on the cabinet nominees, the announcement left many unanswered questions. Just why did it take so long for the two to come up with a list? Why did they name only 4 and not all the 18 nominees? Just when will the other 14 nominees and names be unveiled? Well, KTN's Rita Tinina will be joining us in just a short while to give us the details of this and probably to give us some answers of these questions.
The announcement of the 4 nominees for cabinet secretaries may have been an anticlimax to the long wait for the list of cabinet secretaries. But from the word go, it was clear the president and his deputy were out to open a new chapter in the country's governance history.
It is indeed our intention to put in place a cabinet that has the capacity to deliver not just on the manifesto, but to deliver on the promise of a transformed nation.
Of the 4, 3 have not been in the public limelight. Dr. Fred Okengo Matiang'i, a program and implementation expert, is leaving his job as the executive director of the State University of New York. He is the president's choice for cabinet secretary in charge of information, communication and technology.
I know there is a lot to be done, but we hope by the grace of God that we will be able in the coming days to work together with the others on the team to make our contribution.
Macroeconomist Henry Rotich, who has previously worked with the Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund, will hold brief at the National Treasury and will immediately jump into the deep end of budget making if he sails through the vetting process.
We will be drawing on your support to move the agenda that has been laid down by His Excellency the President.
James Wainaina Macharia, who has been the Group Managing Director of NIC Bank, has been nominated as Cabinet Secretary for Health.
I believe with commitment and passion and teamwork, nothing cannot be achieved.
Amina Mohammed, a lawyer and diplomat who once served as PS for Justice, National Cohesion and Constitutional Affairs and was the Deputy Executive Director of UNEP, has been picked as the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs.
I'm humbled, I feel privileged and uniquely honored, and I'll be waiting for your instructions on what I should be doing next. Thank you very much.
It remains unclear when the remaining 14 nominees will be unveiled, with President Uhuru Kenyatta saying consultations are still ongoing.
For us, it's really just going through those names and ensuring that we pick a team that is capable of working together, that is capable of working in harmony, but it's no challenge whatsoever.
The government also sought to set the record straight on concerns over the status of the Department of Cooperative Development and that of the East African Community Affairs.
The cooperative sector is a very critical component. That particular department is under the Ministry of Industrialization and Enterprise Development. We did fashion it that way so that we capture the whole spirit of how to grow this economy by double digits.
4 nominees unveiled, 14 to go. With no indications yet as to when the full list will be released, the country will have to wait a little longer as the president and his deputy piece together their puzzle of cabinet secretaries. Rita Tinina, KTN, State House, Nairobi.
Now, in contemporary Kenyan lingo, it might be called swag, but the unveiling of Uhuru's cabinet was marked by a generous display of style and a new way of doing things. From the uniform dressing by both the president and his deputy to holding of hands in the end, the ceremony was like no other seen at previous State House functions. So, was it too much style of a substance, or perhaps a health mix of both? KTN's Wilkis Tanyabo with a lowdown of what might just be the new face of the State House press briefings.
At the appointed hour, the doors of State House flew open and out stepped President Uhuru Kenyatta and his second-in-command, William Ruto. On this special occasion, the two decided to discard their jackets, instead turning up in matching shirts and red ties, perhaps to send a message of a dynamic, united front. And in this spirit, William Ruto now flanking the president while his aide-de-camp was not in his usual place. This break with tradition would set the tone for the rest of the briefing.
We have been consulting as opposed to what Kenyans are traditionally used to, hearing a radio announcement at 1 o'clock.
Unlike his predecessors, Uhuru would not be content to simply make public the list of nominees. One after another, each nominee for cabinet secretary was led out, introduced to the public by none other than the president, who also read out the nominees' credentials. Then they were given the chance, their very first, to address the public they would be serving, should they be approved by Parliament.
First and foremost, for affording me an opportunity to join the dynamic Jubilee team that you two lead.
The nominees for cabinet secretary perhaps feeling the pressure to live up to their positions in this digital government. And in a series of firsts, the president would go on to take questions from journalists, some of whom he said he knew.
Mr. President, my name is Oliver Madenge from the Star
Yes,
newspaper.
Oliver, I know you.
And with the announcement of the nominees, or at least the first part of it, dispensed with, the president now turning his attention to other important matters.
Thank you very much.
Asanteni sana. Karibuni chai. Mtaki chai. Tunawakaribisha chai wenze.
He walked back into State House, breaking with tradition, but keeping in step with his deputy, literally holding hands. Wilkes Anyabwa, KTN Prime.
So is it swag or style? Why don't we ask the experts in this? Image consultant and speech coach, we're talking about Paul Achar and Derek Banga. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
You've seen the speech. You've seen the announcement. Let's start with the dress code. Actually, what I want us to discuss is the communication and the dress code. If I start with Derek here, they were donning white and a red tie. What did you feel? How did you feel about this? Is it a communication breakdown? Maybe you're not getting something?
Well, first of all, let me say that it was refreshing to see a change. And I think Uhuru and certainly his team wants to show the nation that they want to do things a little differently from the previous administration. However, there are certain things that have to be taken into account. And this was a copybook straight from the Obama playbook in terms of dressing a little bit informally. My take on this is that, yes, it was good. In fact, we call those power dressing, red tie, white shirt. But for an announcement of this magnitude, I would have loved to see him with a jacket on. The jacket conveys the authority, it conveys the seriousness that this announcement.
Paul, very quickly, what do you think about the dressing?
This presidency seems to be laden with a lot of symbolism. And what I see are two hard-working men throwing away their jackets and stepping out at the end of the day to tell us, look, we've been working hard the whole day.
That's the question is, was it right? Was it right for them to, just stick with a white shirt and red tie?
It humanizes them, and it looks pretty good. Derek has called it power dressing. So that came out in their dressing.
You're a communication expert, and I must say that Uhuru came out very strong this time. And when he was leaving, there's something very interesting he said. First of all, welcoming the journalists to have tea with him, talking to the journalists, and then holding William Ruto, his deputy, by his hand and actually waving it. What does it say?
Well, I think that this is a partnership that started with two gentlemen coming together based on mutual interests, but over time it has evolved into a real friendship. The body language indicates that there's chemistry between the two of them. They really get along together. And you could see he broke from protocol. After the president is done with speaking, he calls William. He doesn't say the deputy president, and asks him to say something. Normally in situations like this, it's the president who, after he's done with his presentation, with his speech, everyone leaves. So
Derek,
I
what do you
think
think? Very quickly.
My take on that, I understand he's going the informal way. He wants to sort of demystify the institution of president. However, he should be careful not to make it too informal. The institution of presidency still has to have that authority. So he has to be careful not to take it a step too far. I would say baby steps and not go the whole hog.
Very quickly, one question, one answer. Swag or style?
Swag is for boys. Class is for gentlemen.
I think this is his style.
Yeah,
I think so.
Style, full stop.
It's style, and we'll see a lot of this. It's keeping in with their brand.
Yeah.
They campaigned on the platform of transformational leadership, a new generation, and digital, and that's what we're seeing.
Digital
it's resonating with a lot of what I'd call the post-independence generation.
All right, our time is up. We've been discussing all about style and what we say, swag, and I like to say the swag and style, whichever the case. Thank you very much, Paul Achar and Derek Banga, for your information, then for your feedback. Back to Betty. I think she has more on the Cabinet Watch.
Well, thank you very much, Njoka, for that. You seem so excited about the presidential swag. But still in our coverage, the sneak preview into the Jubilee cabinet has left Kenyans guessing on which other technocrats will make the list. In the political world, however, it is a nervous wait as the fate of the president's closest allies remains unknown. Will the Jubilee kingpins make a comeback into cabinet, or is it the end of the road? Here is KTN's Ashimwilu.
In the name of political strategy, they were the masters, dancing the tactical tune to align themselves to the winning duo. Some dropped their ambitious bids for the presidency, others entered into mergers with the Jubilee team. Their hope was that a Jubilee win would give them a new lifeline in cabinet.
Me, I am very happy and very comfortable to be with people who are my almost age mates, we are in the same line. Na najua tukishikana tutafanya kazi pamoja.
But those ones who are agitating to get whatever they want to get, if they fail, and when they fail, they should be willing to join you and build this nation.
The Amani team is ready to have that cooperation of purpose.
But that was all before President Uhuru Kenyatta gave Kenyans a sneak preview of his 18-member cabinet.
Ambassador Mohammed is currently the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. He has been involved in formulating macroeconomic policies.
It would appear that the Jubilee strategy to pick cabinet nominees with impeccable academic and professional qualifications could lock out Uhuru and Ruto's political allies.
Tunawashukuru sana kwa sababu tunajua juhudi zao ndizo zimetusaidia kuunda serikali hii ya Jubilee. Na sisi vile tumesema sana tutafanya kazi na wote. Hakuna mtu ambaye tutawacha nje.
The president's list appears to have dimmed the light at the end of the tunnel for some of the former ministers who had lined up for cabinet jobs, but who may not have the CVs Uhuru and Ruto seem to be keen on. 14 nominees are yet to be unveiled, and the speculations have just begun.
Asanteni sana. Thank you very much.
And with the trend set, many allies are set for disappointment at the end of the unveiling of the full 18-member cabinet. Ashimwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
Now, the new look cabinet will have to contend with an equally new governance terrain, with two other arms of government and a host of commissions checking it. The question of separation of powers is likely to be one of the major tests in the coming days. KTN's Samogina reports on the thin line Uhuru's new cabinet will have to walk in discharging its duties.
With the country's pure presidential system firmly in place, there is a clear demarcation of roles detaching the executive from both the legislature and the judiciary. The country's constitution explicitly instituting a separation of powers between the institutions.
There's going to be a change, in my view, a change of the way people actually work in government. People have, and we must, be ready to actually make one step backwards and ask ourselves, where have we been doing this thing in a given way?
Ideally, the National Assembly's brief is to check the executive, rubber stamp or reject executive's decisions. But the principle of separation of powers might be rendered more of a fallacy than a reality. While the president will be pushing for his policies and appointees to sail through the National Assembly, this may result into the executive arm twisting of parliamentarians through proxies.
If it's a matter of really passing certain legislations or vetting of members of the cabinet, then reason must actually prevail.
And given the Jubilee Alliance dominance in Parliament, there is a risk of the Alliance parliamentarians playing to the tunes of the executive in defense of the government stand as a sign of allegiance to the executive powers. The 10th Parliament epitomized ethnic balkanization with the House debates on departmental committees centered on either defending a member of their clique or otherwise. The debate on the shilling recommending the axing of Central Bank Governor Njuguna Ndung'u circled majorly around this point, bankrolled by some of the executive members.
Our governor has been voted as the worst performing governor in Africa. If you look at the question of post-election violence, was the minister, do you want to blame the governor for the post-election violence?
And so was the debate on firing of former Finance Minister Amos Kimunya for misappropriation.
Ho, IPO, ho, ho, no!
They may be, shocked to find out that, Allah has been woken up to a totally different regime where, Kenya is actually one.
And whether the separation of powers principles will amend these vices or project the same acts, it is a test of debunking a fallacy from practicability. Samogina, KTN, Nairobi.
You are indeed watching KTN Prime, and let's take this discussion further. And James Smart is at the summit with Adams Olo. For details of this, James Smart, over to you.
So, well, thank you very much, Eric Njoka. And away from the swag and style, let's talk about the hard political content of what happened today. And I'm joined here at the summit with political scientist Adams Olo, Dr. Adams Olo. Adams, we have 4 names. We were supposed to have 18 names today. Why are we having 4 names?
Well, I think that there could be several reasons for that. One is that maybe they just want to test the waters. They want to see that how are the Kenyans and the public at large going to receive the nominees that we are going to put out there. I think they caught everybody unawares by giving only 4 names when people expected 18. Of course, tongues will be wagging that maybe they have disagreed, but I think that it has been quite a while since they were elected, since they were sworn in, and if at all there were any disagreements, by now they should have thrashed them out. So I think it's a question of them trying to manage their own house in their own way, rather than there being really a problem.
And the best way they're doing it, all of these 4 persons that have been nominated today, all of them are professionals. They have serious credentials, if you like, and you can't fault them on issues of just credentials.
No, you can't fault them on credentials. Maybe you might fault one in terms of the question of is he really a technocrat in that area, because Wainaina appears to be a banker, yet this is the Ministry of Health. One would have expected that since you have moved away from appointing politicians as cabinet secretaries, that you would really go for people who are technocrats within their specific domains. And therefore, of the 4, you would say that it's only Wainaina who's a little bit, quite a professional, but not really, not trained in the health sector or not trained in social policy as such. So he's the only one whom you might say that a little bit falls out of the way.
Adams, what does this tell us in terms of we have professionals who are being named and they are being fronted to us? What happens to the heavy political, back team that they have and they lost in the elections? Do you think they have a space in this, or we can clearly say this is done? There is no space for having political bigwigs come back?
Probably the high probability is that they are not going to have room on this one, that they might most likely have room in parastatals or maybe ambassadorial positions. But once you have given us a test of technocrats, if you were to bring another 5 or another 9 and you bring in the old politicians again, I think that would kind of spoil the taste in our mouth that you have already put in us. So I think maybe we are saying goodbye to the politicians and let them look for rewards elsewhere, not in the cabinet secretary positions.
Mm-hmm. And generally, finally, what would you say is, from these 4 nominees, what can we make out of, Uhuru presidency and his style in terms of, getting persons that, we knew them as technocrats working in ministries and other places. What does it say about his presidency and his style?
Well, I think that the first place you look at is the Constitution. By the Constitution telling us that we have a pure presidential system, the Constitution wanted to separate the executive from the legislature. It was basically telling us that, if you want to play politics, then go to the legislature. If you want implementation of policies, then come to the executive, and there we are going to need technocrats. And therefore, maybe Uhuru is living to the spirit of the Constitution by bringing in technocrats to handle the cabinet secretary positions and leaving the politicians to play their politics in the legislature.
Where do you reward your good people in this setting?
Well, maybe to be chairs of parastatal boards or be ambassadors, but even for ambassadors, maybe we might want career diplomats there. So it's a tall order, but we have to wait and see whether those people who feel that we stuck out our neck for you, whether there's going to be a place for them. But there has to be a place for them, because after 5 years, Uhuru and Ruto will have to play politics after 5 years, and they'll need those people. So they have to find some place for them.
All right, Dr. Adams Olo, political scientist, thank you very much for that insight. We've been talking to Dr. Adams Olo, just giving us an insight of the 4 nominees that were nominated today by President Uhuru Kenyatta as first of his bunch to release for us in the country. Well, right now, I hand it over to Betty Kialo. Betty.
In Garissa have stepped up their search for the perpetrators of the town. The operation today saw the security personnel conduct door-to-door sweeps in Garissa County in search of those responsible for the Thursday killings. Sophia Wanuna is in Garissa and brings us the latest from the county in the following report.
It is 6:45 p.m. here in Garissa town, a town that was once peaceful and now a shadow of its former self. It has become the epicenter of violent attacks. The most recent, the Thursday shootings that left 10 people dead. And so far, hundreds of police officers have been deployed to this region. Yesterday, the day before, and today, hundreds of people have continued to be arrested and screened. A dusk to dawn curfew has also been enforced, and 12 police officers have been interdicted. The government is offering 50,000 to 100,000 Kenya shillings to anyone who would provide them with solid leads. But with all this happening, the government is yet to nail the key suspects behind the attacks. We will continue our stay here in Garissa town and bring you the very latest as and when we get those details. I'm Sophia Wanuna in Garissa.
Well, you are watching KTN Prime. Let's remind you the big question tonight. Are you satisfied with the choice of the 4 cabinet nominees?
Indeed, that's the big question tonight. Do send your yes or no response to the number 8040 and we'll sample your views during and at the end of this live newscast.
You are indeed watching KTN Prime Time. For a short break, we'll be back in a short while.
Ahead on KTN Business Today, analysts predict a 5.5% growth of Kenya's economy, and whether or not the peaceful transition plays a role, we tell you why. Also on tonight's bulletin, farmers are facing another poor harvest, and this is due to resistance of the use of certified seeds. This and more coming up in KTN Business Today. Join me, Joy Doreen Bira. I'll see you then.